Hello, I'm Kimberly, and welcome to the weekend edition of the Native News Update. It's Friday, September 27th. Many of the stories you hear here can be found at IndianCountryTV.com. And here's the news today from the Associated Press and other Native news sources. The Bonneville Power Administration proposes running power lines through the Columbia River Gorge in Washington State. The federal electricity provider is trying to string near a cave that contains ancient paintings. The paintings are inside a tall cave on a rocky hillside in Wishram, Washington. For generations, Northwest tribes have used this place for vision quests and other spiritual ceremonies. The site lies along the path of transmission lines carrying electricity from vast wind turbine farms upriver to the western electrical grid. BPA proposes building a new 243-foot tower near the cave to carry even more cables across the Columbia River. BPA spokesman Doug Johnson says his agency is committed to preserving culturally sensitive spots for tribes. The latest dispute over BPA power project is whether the site where the tower would go is eligible as an official Lewis and Clark landmark. The explorers came through there in 1805. The BPA hopes to settle that and other conflicts soon, so construction on the new transmission lines can resume this fall. The House of Representatives is set to vote on a bill that some say will destroy sacred ground. A bipartisan bill introduced by Arizona Representative Republican Paul Gosar and Democratic Representative Ann Kirkpatrick would swap more than 2,000 acres of federal forest land in exchange for more than 5,000 acres owned by Resolution Copper Mining. Critics argue that the mine will not only alter the landscape permanently, but also be built on Native American holy site. The San Carlos Apaches have been highly critical of the mining site, issuing a study that found that Resolution Copper Mining greatly exaggerated the economic benefits to mining near the Tonto National Forest. The two areas in question are called Oak Flat and Apache Leap. According to Earthworks, the site became sacred after Apache warriors leaped to their death rather than surrender to the U.S. Cavalry in the 1870s. James Szynski is again accepting private bids on a 40-acre parcel he owns in the vicinity of the 1890 Wounded Knee Massacre. His family has owned the property since 1968. Its assessed value is about $14,000. Szynski wants $4.9 million for the parcel at Wounded Knee and 40 acres at Porcupine Butte, saying the historical significance adds value. According to KOTA, Szynski said the family home and museum were destroyed during the 1973 Wounded Knee uprising, and he wants to cover his losses. He is accepting sealed bids on the properties until October 15th. If those bids aren't high enough, he said he plans to put the site up for public auction, possibly as soon as November. A Republican bill would make it tougher to challenge Native American mascots, logos, or nicknames used by school districts in Wisconsin. Supporters say the bill would give more power to local residents, while opponents say it will keep Native American mascots from ever being changed. Democrats passed Act 250 in 2009, creating a process for people to challenge a school district's Native American mascot, logo, or nickname. If a person filed a complaint with the Department of Public Instruction, the school district had to either change the logo or defend it in a hearing. Since then, a number of districts have changed their mascots either preemptively or under order by DPI. But Republicans, including Representative Steve Nass, have long criticized the law and are set to introduce a bill that makes big changes to it. Under the bill, cases that are appealed will now be heard by the Department of Administration and not DPI. The bill will still allow for a challenge, but will give districts a better chance at defending themselves. The bill changing the state's mascots law is expected to be introduced into the legislature next week. Native American women seeking emergency contraception at Indian Health Service facilities managed by the federal government now can get it without a consultation or prescription. The agency has come under fire from women's health advocates who said it needed to make the morning after pill more accessible to American Indian and Alaska Native women. IHS has no retail pharmacies, and critics said Native women faced long wait times for Plan B because they had to compete with other patients seeking emergency care at clinics, urgent care centers, or emergency rooms. IHS said more than a year ago that it was finalizing a policy to provide the drug directly to patients. The policy hasn't been released, but the agency told the Associated Press that all IHS facilities run by the federal government are now under a verbal directive to provide Plan B to women 17 years and older at pharmacy windows without a prescription. Meanwhile, women's health advocates are pushing IHS to issue a written policy on emergency contraception. IHS said it's working to update its pharmacy policy, but would hold all employees accountable for following the verbal directive on medication. And that's another roundup of news from Indian Country on this edition of the Native News Update. I'd like to thank you for joining me, and have a grand day.